Okay, we're going to look at this Excel document that's talking about population. So what you have here in this spreadsheet, in column A, are the years, 1790, 1800, 1810, all the way down to 2010. And in the U.S. population column, you have the population of the United States during those years, and it goes all the way down again. So let's look at our instructions. The first instruction says to create a scatter plot with the U.S. populations. Select A5 to B27. We're going to be using design style 1, and we're going to put a chart title U.S. population, and then we're going to add a trend line. So let's get that done. So we're going to start here and select, and we're going to do our recommended chart. We want to choose a scatter plot. So it's going to look like this. Okay, so I want you to read the rest of the directions. I want you to put the chart title on there, and if they ask for any axis titles, make sure you put those in there, and then we'll talk about the trend line. So to create a trend line, what you're going to do is you're going to put your mouse anywhere on the graph, and you're going to select any one of the points that you want. You'll notice that when you do this, all of your points have these like little X's on them. So one way to do this is to right click now and add a trend line, or you can come up here to the plus sign. I'm going to get this off the screen, to the plus sign, and you can select trend line. And then some of you will need to go to the add chart element, and you can choose a trend line there. So it depends on how your system's set up, but you want to pick a trend line, and we want to do a linear trend line. So notice I have this line going through here now. So now I want to select the trend line. So to do that, I'm just going to click on the trend line. And notice that I've got my little dots at the ends of the trend line, so I know it's selected now. And I want to choose some of the properties for my trend line. So I'm going to format it. And what I want to do is over here in my format window, I want to display the equation on the chart. And again, let me see if I can get rid of this. I want to make sure that I have picked the linear trend line. So I should get an equation that looks like this. And it tells you in the directions to select the trend line, select the linear automatic trend line name, and check the display equation on the chart, which we did all that. Let me get that out of the way. And place it on the chart so it's more visible to read. So we've been talking about slope and y-intercept. So what they're asking you to do now is to look at this equation that you have here, and remember that the slope is the value in front of the x. So it's this 1e06, and the y-intercept is the value that's by itself or not with the x, which is this negative 2e09. So these numbers are in scientific notation. So we need to translate those scientific notation values into numbers. So I'm going to give you a minute to look at that. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. So 1e plus 06 is scientific notation. And what that means in scientific notation, or in what we're going to represent that as, is what that stands for is the number 1 times 10 raised to the 6th power. So now you can do your mathematics and do the calculations for that to figure out what that's going to be, right? So when you do 1 times 10 raised to the 6th power, you end up getting 1 million, right? 1 with 6 zeros. So that represents our slope. So then we're going to do the same thing for the y-intercept. So let's look at our directions real quick. So it tells us in E24, determine the slope, formatted as a number with no decimal places and with commas. So we're going to put in that number 1 million here. We're going to go up here and format it as a number. We don't want any decimal places, but we want commas. So I got to make sure I get rid of my decimals again. So we've got the number 1 million with commas and no decimal places, and it's formatted as a number. See if I can get that in there. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing for the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is going to be this negative 2e plus 09. So then that's going to be negative 2 times 10 to the negative, I'm sorry, times 10 to the 9th power. And then we're going to put that number in for our y-intercept. All right, so now for part C, they're asking you to find the slope and the y-intercept using a formula. So they said use the slope function to calculate the exact value of the slope of the curve and format as a number with no decimal places and a comma. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change this into a slope formula. So if we're going to do equals slope, and what they're asking you to know here to put in here are your y values and then your x values. So in this chart that we have here, our y values are the populations and our x values are the years. So for the y values, I want these numbers. Okay. And then for the x values, I want these numbers. Okay. So I want you to look at what we've got here for our formula. So we've got equals slope, B5 to B27, because that's where our y values are, and then A5 to A27, because those are our x values. And when we do that, notice that we get a slope of 1,360,000. So let's do our formatting. We want it to be a number with commas and no decimal places. So this is our slope. This is the actual slope of this equation, whereas the number that they're giving you here is an approximate slope. Okay, so we've got the actual slope here. Now the intercept is going to be done the same way. So you're going to calculate the y-intercept using the same type of formula as the slope. You're going to type equals intercept. And then you're going to do the y's and the x's again. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Now to get my formatting right, I had to actually go up and choose the more number formats. So you might need to do that and make sure that these are showing up as numbers. So we want to go up and do more number formats and pick number. And then just make sure that you're picking the right format so that you get the numbers in there that you want. Okay, and you want it to be showing number up here. Mine's showing custom again. So I'm going to choose number just to make sure that I've got it in the right format. All right, so now what this problem means here is that this is my slope and this is my y-intercept. So I technically have an equation that is y equals 1,360,370 x minus, because it's a negative, 2,480,724 and 26. So I have this equation here. So what they're asking you to do here for part D is, what if the year is 2050? Then what would my answer be here? So basically I want to take this y equals, and I want, whoops, instead of x, I want to put in 2050. okay? But we want to make sure that we're using cell references. We don't want to use, except for the 2050, we don't want to use numbers. So the 1,360,000 is located in E28, and the 2 billion is located in F28. So we want to use cell references. So we want to have, for example, got to figure out where I'm going to do it, how to do it over here. So we're going to put E28 and then the 2050, and then we're going to put F28. And what we're doing here is multiplying, so you're going to want to make sure you use the correct symbol for multiplication. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll check the next step. All right, so we have our population in 2050. Now, the thing about this is that doesn't quite make sense is that our population in 2010 was 308,745,000. Our population in 2050, according to this, is 308,034,000. So we have declined, so that wouldn't necessarily make sense. So what we want to do is try it a different way and see what happens next. So I'm going to let you look at these questions here, and you should be choosing from the drop down about what's changing. I'm going to let you look at that. So part F, what they want you to do, so in cells E45. So E45, what they're asking you to do is calculate how many years have passed since the year corresponding to the population provided in F45 compared to 1950, and then fill that down. So F45 is the population is 151 million. So 151,325,000, that is the year 1950, right? So how many years have passed since 1950? We're going to do a little formula here. So we're going to do equals, and then we're going to do this value minus 1950, right? So I'd have 0 years. And then when I fill that down, I end up with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So this is the number of years since 1950. So the very first value we have here, 151 million, corresponds to year 1950. So how many years since 1950 would be 0? 1960 would be 10 years since 1950. 1970 would be 20 years. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing with these numbers. We're going to create a scatter plot again. So we're going to insert a scatter plot. But this time we're going to put the scatter plot way over here, sort of hidden out of view. So you got to grab that scatter plot and drag it over here to your area. And we're going to do the same thing that we did for the first one. We're going to make a trend line, and we're going to copy that slope and y-intercept, and we're going to actually calculate the slope and y-intercept using these values from this chart, not the ones over here in column A and B. And you're going to do the same process here that we did up above, but you're using this chart here. So I think you've got a good start on this. So if you have any questions, you can contact me, and have a great day.